Here to discuss the ongoing power struggle, Michael Rubin of the American Enterprise Institute, the author of Dancing with the Devil, The Perils of Engagement. Michael, as always, our thanks for your time today.
Thank you, JD. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, we just heard from my old pal Pete Hoekstra. Do you agree with his assessment of what's going on in Yemen?
Well, I do, but we do need to recognize that the Houthis can be just as dangerous to American interests, perhaps, as al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. It would be wrong to say, as some Yemenis do, that the rise of the Houthis is simply a result of al-Qaeda in the that the rise of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula is the result of the rise of the Houthis, simply because al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula predates the rise of the Houthis, and it really is a lesson in allowing ungoverned territory to continue.
Michael, there are conflicting accounts right now about the cause of the clashes. What have you yourself heard?
Well, basically, what appears to have happened is the Houthis, who are concentrated in northern Yemen and constitute about 35% of the country, have moved down into Sana'a, and the Yemeni government said that they planned or plotted a coup attempt. They surrounded the prime minister's house, residence and office. There should be there's a ceasefire right now. Now, you know what my analysis of this is that the Houthis don't want to take over the entire government in Yemen. What they want to do is pursue what Hezbollah did in Lebanon, where Hezbollah also has a similar proportion of the population. They want to make sure that they have enough control that they can veto anything the Yemeni government does, but they realize they're never going to have enough control to run the whole country.
Michael, perhaps it's important to take a step back, and I kind of feel like we're asking you to engage in Yemen 101. The Houthis, to hear that in the context you're using the term, I think we pretty much understand, but tell us precisely, who are the Houthis?
Well, you know, Bernard Lewis once observed, the eminent historian of the Middle East, that wherever you have mountains in the region, that's where you have the minorities. And Yemen is a very mountainous country. The Houthis are Shiites, but they're not really Shiites like you have in Iran. They follow a different theological path. And for many decades, the Iranians simply ignored them. About 2 or 3 years ago, that changed when the Iranians decided to have a come to Muhammad moment, if it were, and recognize the Houthis as Shiites. And they actively started providing aid and assistance to the Houthis. And if you will, they constructed a Hezbollah model. Now, the reason why Yemen is so important and the Houthis are so important is for all we talk about the Strait of Hormuz, which is a chokehold in the Persian Gulf. You know, off the coast of Yemen, the Bab al-Mandab is just as narrow, and all shipping that goes to the Suez Canal, for example, has to pass through that. Therefore, Yemen is incredibly strategically important, and if you allow the Iranians to have control over the chokehold of the Strait of Hormuz and the chokehold of the Bab al-Mandab, they really will have control over seaborne oil traffic in the Middle East and Europe.
Michael, there's clearly a power struggle going on here. How do you think this will affect our fight with al-Qaeda?
Well, certainly, whenever you have this sectarian conflict, it only exacerbates the fight with al-Qaeda. And what you have is a pattern that we see in Syria as well, where what started as an internal conflict steadily morphs into a regional and sectarian war. If you have international jihadis, for example, flowing into Yemen to fight with al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and at the same time you have international Shiites and proponents of the Iranian model flow in to fight with the Houthis, suddenly what you find in Yemen isn't a minor civil war, it's Syria redux, and we've all seen the regional instability that's come with regard to the Syrian war. And what's more dangerous when you look at the map is you have Saudi Arabia in the middle, and if you have chaos on each and every of the Saudi borders, north and south, then ultimately you have to start worrying about the stability of the kingdom itself.
You have laid out for us the geopolitical implications. There are others that we need to report on. We are just receiving reports of shots fired at American embassy personnel, specifically at U.S. embassy vehicles now in Yemen. Pete Hoekstra detailed to us yesterday, Michael, that Yemen has not been a safe posting for Americans for a long time, but now the notion that Americans or embassy employees may be literal targets. that complicates matters for the United States, does it not?
It does indeed, but remember that we have the USS Iwo Jima, which has a full complement of helicopters, of Ospreys, the tilt rotor, the helicopters that, if you will, convert into airplanes, which are they're in the Red Sea right now. They're able to evacuate American staff from Yemen. The problem is once you order an evacuation like that, it's hard to fill the vacuum and return in any sort of sense. And so you don't want to go down that route if you can avoid it. One of the ironies, of course, is that when you have the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit on board the USS Iwo Jima, the irony is that, of course, the White House under President Obama has been trying to slash the budgets for the Marine Expeditionary Units, which are the only units that are able to do an extraction like we're talking about in Yemen right now.
Michael Rubin, we appreciate the information and the analysis you bring of the unfolding situation in Yemen. Michael is the author of Dancing with the Devil, The Perils of Engagement. And again, our thanks to Michael Rubin. And a quick programming note. Make sure to make Newsmax TV your source for the President's State of the Union address tonight. We will have live coverage of the speech plus in-depth analysis. That will start here at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on Newsmax TV. And that's coming up. I'll be here at the anchor desk. Miranda Khan will be here as well, and we'll call on experts, including our good friend John Funn, to analyze what the president had to say tonight, and more importantly, the likelihood of those words reflecting actions. Our action right now to step aside. We'll be back following this Newsmax Now update.